Hi, my name is Sophia Haile, and this past summer I assisted Professor Hamilton on her research project that focused on the perception and treatment of Black adolescents in the education and juvenile criminal justice systems. I focused primarily on the educational realm alongside another collaborator named Tracy Ann Powell. Because of the recent growth of the racial discipline gap and our own prior personal experiences as Black students in the public education system, this became the focus of our inquiry. We also were assigned a first-year William and Mary law student named Francesca to work alongside and learn from. Our goals were to consolidate and analyze existing literature on how Black students are disciplined, perceived, and treated in schools. This disproportionality between how Black students are treated in schools in comparison to their non-Black counterparts was first identified in a study conducted by the Children's Defense Fund in 1975. This study found that Black students were more likely to receive school suspensions in comparison to their white peers. This disproportionality, now known as the racial discipline gap, has only grown since then as research continues to show that race is strongly associated with being disciplined in the classroom. Since the findings by the Children's Defense Fund, the national rate of out-of-school suspension for Black students has increased by 200% when compared to the 2011-2012 school year. For white students, this rate only increased by 12%. In addition, the implementation of zero tolerance policies as a primary disciplinary measure in public schools served as an integral force that has strengthened this disproportionality. This led to the transformation of American public schools into a place that has resembled prisons. In order to effectively explore the racial discipline gap, it was necessary to perform a systematic review of prior existing literature in the subject area. Existing empirical data, both quantitative and qualitative, allowed us to analyze the effect of disciplinary measures on Black adolescents in schools. When conducting our search of existing literature, keywords such as school discipline, Black students, treatment of Black students in schools, and the racial discipline gap were utilized. By reviewing existing literature, the existence of racial disparities in the educational discipline were evident. The criteria for the literature analyzed in this research was that the studies had to pertain exclusively to the disciplinary practices and experiences of Black students in public and secondary education, grades kindergarten through 12th grade in the United States. In addition, literature examined was exclusively from the past 2 decades, with a heavier emphasis on the more recent decade. The window of collecting and analyzing literature was between the months of June and July of the year 2021. This research culminated in a research project paper written by my collaborator and I that outlined the goals of the project, background information, and our methods. This paper also included an investigation into the effects of Black boy adolescents, Black girl adolescents, and also our limitations and implication of the research. The intent of this work was to investigate how Black adolescents are perceived and treated in the public education system in order to better understand the racial discipline gap. Our examination found that there are inequitable disciplinary experiences between Black and non-Black students. This is evident through suspension and referral rates that disproportionately have a higher percentage of Black students. When students are suspended at higher rates than their peers, they often lose valuable instruction time and are more likely to be pushed out of schools and into the criminal justice system. Although we investigated the experiences of Black boys and girls separately, the racial discipline gap affects both Black boys and girls in similar ways. Black adolescents in general are perceived differently than their non-Black peers in the classroom through stereotypes and the loss of innocence through adultification. Specifically, our findings showed that Black girls were often stereotyped in the context of their femininity, while Black boys were often frequently labeled as a threat. However, both genders were painted as deviant by educators and were under constant surveillance and criminalized for their behavior. The unfair disciplinary measures practiced for both Black girls and boys have resulted in school exclusion and negative long-term effects that have undermined the academic potential and harmed the mental health of Black adolescents. It is necessary to identify potential limitations of our findings and our analysis. The quality of the search process may have been hindered due to potential bias, aided by our own personal viewpoints on the subject area. This may have led to the absence of relevant research that may have been necessary to include. Another notable limitation is the number of sources that were the focus of our analysis. 27 sources were collected, which only reflects a small fraction of the available literature on this subject area. A thorough analysis of more studies would have allowed for a more detailed investigation. In addition, the search process was completed entirely through online databases. This research may have benefited from in-person collaboration between authors of this paper and an intensive in-person search and collection of articles and studies from local and college libraries. Lastly, this research omitted considering Black students who do not identify within the gender binary due to the absence of existing literature and data on that subset of students. This research affirms the importance of revisiting the current disciplinary measures put in place at the primary and secondary school level. Because of the recent widening of this gap, further research needs to be conducted to establish solutions that will narrow the disparities between Black and non-Black students. It is imperative for educational institution, parents, educators, and researchers to work collaboratively to undo the damage that has already negatively affected Black students. The findings of our research assert that these disparities cannot be ignored, and it is vital that Black adolescents are supported both in and outside the classroom. Thank you so much for your time.